All right, looks like we're streaming.
Yep.
Just double checking if we got everybody. Streaming.
Yep.
Okay, we'll move back into the public session. Roy, I'll turn it over to you. You're on mute, Roy.
Okay, thanks. Hi, everybody. Good to see you all, even over Zoom. We called the meeting tonight because, as you know, we have been working on our reopening plans for the fall. And part of our requirement is that we have to submit a plan to the state for approval by July 31st. The plan does not need board approval, but we certainly wanted to have an opportunity for the board and the public to weigh in on the plans that we were currently thinking about. So what I'd like to do is run through the plan with you, knowing that it's not all the details that are in the plan. Once the plan is submitted to the state and approved by the state, it'll be posted on our website in a special section that we put in place now called COVID-19 right on the homepage. It'll be on there, so anyone who wants to read through the entire plan and all the details that go along with it, you're welcome to do that. It'll be about 75 or 70 pages in length in total. So what I'd like to do is, again, start this off by sharing my screen, and we can get started on this plan. 1 second. Okay, let's see. You're right there. Of course, I can't find it now. Okay, can you all see my screen okay?
Perfect.
All right, great. So I will tell you that this has been one of the more challenging things that I've experienced in my career, trying to plan for a pandemic and reopening. We have a number of opinions as to what we should be doing and how we do it and what's the right way of doing it, et cetera, et cetera. But we think we have put together a fairly comprehensive plan, and we developed a plan that allows us to be flexible as we move through the uncertain times that we're in. There's a good chance that we could be recycling through reopening and closings throughout the fall. Who knows? Hopefully the vaccine will come soon, but there's a chance they'll be open and then shut down. So we want to make sure we have a plan that's flexible and fluid enough that when or if it does happen that we can have to shut down, we can quickly flip a switch and go to a full remote plan if necessary. But we do plan to reopen in September with a flexible program that includes in-person instruction for K-8, in-person instruction remote for high school, a hybrid approach, and we'll be offering an opportunity for families who are uncomfortable sending their children home to school to keep them home through remote. So let's see, here we go. So as I mentioned, plans are due to the State Department by July 31st and be posted on district website. Governor Cuomo will be announcing the first week of August whether schools are able to open at all. And he has put together his formula for this, which if the infection rates stay at 5% or lower in the region, and currently in our region, we're hovering around that 1% mark, so that's great. And the region has to be in phase 4. Those two metrics are met, then schools are permitted to reopen. The plan that we have put together is based on guidance and recommendations from the New York State Ed Department, who released a set of guidelines. The Center for Disease Control, the New York State Department of Health has also sent us a set of guidelines. We received some guidance from the American Academy of Pediatrics. As you know, we put together a Return to Learn Task Force Committee that has been meeting a few times prior to the end of the school year and continue to meet to offer their opinions and look at various things. And we also, if you recall, we did a parent survey not too long ago, and we did get some information there. So what I am going to ask, I think it'd be wise now to ask, oops, hold on a second, ask Mara to review the results of the parent survey and to give you some data points for information that that we received. So Mara, if you can just do that, and then I'll continue with the reopening plan from there.
Maura, you're on mute.
How about now?
We're
Perfect.
good.
Okay. So as Roy mentioned, we did conduct a parent and student survey in the spring. We received over 600 responses from parents and over 250 responses from students in grades 4 through 11 as part of the survey. The goal of the survey was really to measure get some feedback on our distance learning program, should we return to distance learning again, but also to gauge what was important to our community going forward in whatever form we open in September. As you can see on the parent side, we had 612 responses coming primarily from the elementary school parents, but we did have participation by middle and high school parents. We asked a question about a balance between synchronous and asynchronous instruction, and as you can see, the results were varied in terms of whether we had enough live instruction or for the community. And we do know that there is a great deal of importance and really a priority towards live instruction, whether we be in person, where that obviously takes place, or in a distance learning situation. The technology used during distance learning was deemed to be largely, parents found that they could help their child doing that, and also that the students were engaged by the technology we used in our distance learning program, to include Zoom, Google Classroom, etc. This was a very big data point for us. This was one of the most, kind of clear pieces we got from the survey that we conducted, that parents are extremely concerned about their child's social and emotional well-being during periods of distance learning. We asked briefly about some options for returning to school. One option was where students would attend school in the morning or the afternoon, with neither group receiving distance learning. You could see we had about 28% indicate that that would be their preference. Another option was Group A attends in the AM, Group B attends in the PM, with distance learning alternating in the morning or the afternoon, depending on whether you are in person for which portion of the day. And the final choice was having a group attend school all day, and then another group attending school the entire next day, with remote learning on days where you are not in school. And we had split, but many parents indicating that their preference would be for students to attend school as often as possible, and hopefully for a full day period, with remote sprinkled without when we couldn't necessarily have all students in the building. A little information from the students who did feel that they put a great deal of effort and strong effort into their classes, even during a period of distance learning. In terms of how challenging the students perceive the schoolwork to be, we were about right in the middle. How likely were they to stay focused when doing schoolwork at home? And we could see that students made a great effort, or perceived that they tried their best to stay focused during periods of distance learning. And then we had an opportunity for parents and students to just give us some feedback, one suggestion you have for our school, and a few of the themes are listed here. Parents and students wanted more school, an extended school day. They wanted more live interaction and instruction. Some students actually requested online assemblies and talked about the need for community, particularly with what was going on in the world at the time and continues to be going on, and more support for executive functioning and consistency of schedule. So all in all, some themes here are that, Kids want to be in school with their teachers, receiving live instruction, and have consistency in their schedule whenever possible.
Roy, you're muted.
I am. I'm gonna pick up on what Mara said and continue with the reopening plan. So the components of the plan, this is an outline that the state requires us to include in our plan, but I'd like to hit upon these throughout the presentation. But in the area of health and safety, talking about our classroom screening and cleaning, and again, I'll go into these in more detail. We'll talk about our instruction, the recommended schedule at each of the buildings, some of the social emotional health that we know we are concerned about and people have expressed concern about, and then athletics and extracurriculars. So in the general area, there's been a lot of talk about the PPE, and that includes masks and face coverings or shields, et cetera, et cetera. So when we reopen, we are going to require all staff and students to wear face coverings, wear masks. We do know that young kids will have some challenging times through that. We all will, quite frankly. So we know that we have to build breaks in throughout the day, and that might mean a class going outside to take their mask off. In some of the classrooms, most of the classrooms will have 6 feet distancing as well. So we do think we'll be safe in taking the mask off momentarily. But in all the research that I've been reading, all the recommendations from the medical doctors and other people in that field seem to suggest that the most important protection we can provide for everyone is to require masks to be worn. I've had doctors say to me that should be a non-negotiable. Regardless of the barriers, regardless of the distancing, that is one area we should really try to emphasize. So we're going to try to require that as much as we can. We will have signage throughout the building emphasizing proper hand washing. We have hand sanitizer stations that will be throughout the building and in the classrooms as well, promoting students and staff to continuously wash their hands. And we are going to be practicing social distancing as best we can in all our areas. And that will mean at the elementary level, trying to limit the amount of movement students have throughout the day. At the middle school, trying to identify where in the hallway we should be walking, which way to go, et cetera, et cetera. So we are going to do our best to practice social distancing throughout the school. In the classrooms themselves, we've measured our classrooms to determine student capacities based on desks being placed 6 feet apart wherever possible. The recommendations are that we should have a 6 feet distance, and it makes reference that if you can't do that, then students should definitely be wearing masks and should also consider the use of plastic barriers, which we're doing. So we feel that we put a number of levels of protection in place to help our staff and students. We will be using desk shields, and I'll show you a picture of what we're talking about in just a moment for our desk and around our desks. The ventilation, Mike Lee, our Director of Buildings and Grounds, has been working very hard trying to determine the proper MERV 13 filters that we can use on our system. And some of our system is old and you can't use the MERV 13 filters because it does damage the system. If you do, it prevents the airflow from going through. But we are trying to determine a lot of that new system that we're putting in, if we can handle the MERV 13 filters. If not, we'll go as highest rating as possible. We also know that in rooms that either have a window air conditioner or no air conditioning, that we have to make sure the windows stay open to provide air coming through the rooms. We'll leave our doors open, even though we were told recently that, well, last year, that all doors should be closed for fire prevention. Now we're telling us that we need to have our doors open to allow that airflow. Teachers will be encouraged to use outdoor space as much as possible, either for taking the class out on the field if it's a nice day to teach, or certainly if we can get them out there for lunchtime, that would be great as well. One little aside, we have looked into the potential of either renting or purchasing tents to either use for lunchtime or classroom space. And we're working through that. We do have a proposal. It had to go to the Eastchester Fire Department first for fire department approval. Then after that, we do have to send it up to the state, to the Office of Facilities for their approval. So we're going through that process. I don't know how long it takes, but it's not as easy as saying we want a tent on our grounds. Let's go pick one up. There's a whole process that we have to go through in order to make that happen, which we are trying to do. Here's a picture of the various shields that we've been looking at. This one over here, if you can see my cursor, but then one on the left-hand side of the screen is an L-shaped desk divider. These are the ones that we're looking at for the younger kids in the elementary school because it will face all the desks in the same direction, but allows a little more movement with the students, a little more protection as they sit back. The elementary desks are a little bit larger. That's not an elementary desk there, but they're a little bit larger and it provides a greater level of protection. The one on the upper right are the ones we'll be using for the middle school and high school desks. You can see they just clip on the desk. They have little armhole cutouts to allow students to lean on the desk and write, etc. They do fold up and are fairly mobile. So we do think those will provide a nice barrier for us. If you look on the bottom, we have several classrooms with round tables, and we want to try to encourage either one-on-one instruction or even small group instruction while staying protected. So they make other dividers for our round tables, and in the bottom right, the rectangle tables, where you can have group discussions, teacher, individual, or small group instruction going on at the same time. So we're looking into all those dividers. We've ordered a bunch of them to set up as well. One of the things I did want to mention, and which I'll mention on this slide here, is the cleaning that's going along with all of this. First, talk about the new health office. As you know, that's a big part of our new facilities renovation. We're creating a new health office suite. It has a number of exam rooms, a waiting room area, but for things like this virus and other things, we did plan on an isolation area. So if somebody were to come down with COVID or have symptoms of COVID while in school, we do have a space to isolate them, whether it's a staff member or a student. And that's also one of the recommendations of the Department of Health, is to isolate the individual who's presenting as symptomatic. Excuse me. So our new health office suite will provide that opportunity for us to do that. As far as screening goes, we will be having a daily questionnaire for students and parents to complete via either app or email. We're working on which app we will be using. We're not sure yet, but they're all work pretty much the same, where an email will be sent to parents to fill out for their children to complete, probably 5 o'clock in the morning each morning. An email will go out. You'll be asked to answer about 5 questions. Just, do you have a temperature? Have you been exposed to anyone with COVID? Do you have any symptoms, et cetera, et cetera? And based on that answer, if you assume you're answering all no to that, you'll be giving a green light, if you will, to come to the school that day. And that'll be done daily. If there's a yes response, it'll prompt the person to please stay home and to follow up with their primary medical care person. The lists do get sent to the nurses each day, so they have a sense of how many students are being kept home for due to the questionnaire and how many are in school. The health information is not stored anywhere. We're not keeping anybody's information. It's just a daily questionnaire that we're asking people to complete to get a green light ticket to attend school that day. We are investing in temperature screening kiosks at our entrances. The ones we're looking at have the ability to screen 40 individuals per minute as they walk past the little kiosk area, and will flag anyone who is presenting a temperature, and the guidelines are telling us it has to be a temperature of 100 or above 100. In terms of cleaning, Mike Lee again has been preparing for this for our school opening. We purchased a number of the electrostatic sprayers that allow us to clean the rooms quickly, efficiently, and effectively. through the ultraviolet lights and that it uses. It's been proven to be very effective against the virus. We are also purchasing a product called BioShield, which is something that gets applied to all our surfaces. And I don't know all the science behind it, but apparently it does not allow the virus to stay on the surface. And it does last for up to 3 months at a time. Mike will be doing resurfacing everything in the high traffic areas monthly. So that's another layer that we feel good about and helping us to prevent the virus from being anywhere in a building. Now for the instructional part of the recommendation of our start of school. And these are recommendations that we have at the moment. So we are set to start school on September 8th for all our students. Teachers will be starting on September 2nd. We are recommending that, or asking the board to consider that this recommendation that we schedule September 8th through 11th, which is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, that first week, as half days for students to allow the teachers half days in the afternoon to do setup and adjustment of their classrooms. We know it's going to be very different for our kids and our teachers, and we feel that by having those 4 days as a phase-in opportunity will allow us an opportunity to have a pretty good adjustment transition period once we start up again. The state plan does require us to prepare for all 3 models of instruction. So there's an in-person model, a hybrid model, and a full remote model. So when you go through the plan, once it's posted, you'll see that there are 3 models. And the next slide will show you what we're recommending to start our school year off with. But by doing the 3 models, it does allow us to remain fluid. In the event that schools get closed down, we can quickly go to full remote. Or if the virus gets under control even more and we have a vaccine, we'll quickly, hopefully go back to in-person. So here's our recommendation to start on September 8th. At the elementary and middle school, we feel very confident that we can have all our students in K-8 in person for full-time instruction, in-person full days, again, minus those first 4 days for half days, but that's how we want to start. Any student who needs to stay home for whatever reason will be able to sign on for live stream synchronous instruction. We are planning on sending out a parent survey in the next week or so to determine how many people would prefer to have their children learn remotely, so we can schedule accordingly. But we're very confident that between the desk shields, the social distancing, movement of the desks, the masks, that we're confident we can have all our students K-8 in school. We do plan on using various entrances to allow for separation when students enter the building. So in the middle school, for example, we'll be using several of the Pontfield Road entrances. The elementary school will be using several entrances and take advantage of the classroom doors that go out to the playground. We'll be encouraging our teachers to use outdoor space whenever possible to allow students to be outside, take their mask off when they can, and get the fresh air. We are planning on limiting the movement of children where and whenever possible. So it's a little bit easier to do at the K-5 level than the 6 through 12 level, but wherever possible, we want to limit movement and exposure to all the kids. Many areas of our large areas, the gyms, multi-purpose rooms, we are looking at those to repurpose for instruction, as we may have to split classes here and there if the classrooms aren't large enough for us. At the high school, and this plan will be reviewed on a 2-week basis, but at the high school, we're recommending that we start off with a hybrid model, which means that the high school will be divided into 2 groups, group 1 and group 2 alphabetically. We're recommending that group 1 attends in the morning, while group 2 attends in the afternoon. The group attending in the morning or afternoon will rotate every 2 days. So if I'm group 1, I'm in on Monday and Tuesday in the morning. And if I'm group 2, I'm in Wednesday, Thursday in the morning. This will allow them to get through their blocks in person. When a group is not in the building, they will be required to attend classes remotely through Zoom. So we are planning on synchronous learning. So whether you're home or in school, you'll be on and in class for the day. Teachers are expected to interact with in-person and at-home students each class period. And the transition that we're talking about will occur midday, so lunch will not take place in the school. It's one of our challenges, particularly at the high school and the entire school, is trying to manage the lunchtime, because they do require a 6-foot separation during lunch, because obviously kids cannot have masks on. We don't have that as much room in the building for middle school and high school for lunch times. We know that we have an open campus, but in poor weather, it could be challenging for us. So we want to phase the high school students coming back into the building. They rotate classes, et cetera, et cetera. But one thing I do want to point out is we are looking at using for synchronous learning in our classrooms, using, for example, a 65-inch television in the back of the room with a webcam attached. So the teacher can be in the front of the room, look at the kids in person, and look up at the large screen and work with the students who are at home in a synchronous environment. One of the things that we did learn about in the survey, and something that I know our counselors and psychologists are very concerned about, is the social emotional health of our children and our staff. And so they put together a plan, this tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 plan as a continuous services that we'll be offering. The planning on conducting needs assessment, health screening for students. We have our response to intervention model and our child study team services available for referrals and monitoring of students. As you know, Joyce Festola has been key to introducing the CARE program at the elementary school, when that will be continuing. And we also have a middle school advisory program. We'll be working on social emotional well-being for kids. Tier 2, we have building level group and individual counseling to help address the social emotional needs of our kids as well. And if necessary, tier 3, we have some clinical interventions ready to go in small groups or individual counseling for more intensive behavioral needs. They do plan to issue a wellness survey to families to complete it prior to the first day of school, as well as to teachers. So we get a handle on what we're faced with coming back in September. And so I want to commend the counselors and the psychologists for the continuing care that they're looking into, and I know they're going to be able to support us as we get through this. In terms of athletics, guidance will be supplied by the State Athletic Association Section 1 Athletics based on New York State local executive orders. Currently, they have recommended that all state and regional championships for the 2021 school year be canceled. And at the moment, fall sports start date has been moved to September 21st. We're kind of in a holding pattern for athletics. And in terms of clubs, we do want to evaluate club offerings after the first couple of weeks of school. Once everybody's back, we get a sense of things. We will hopefully be able to offer clubs in some form soon after that. But I do want to let you know that building principals will be setting up PTA council meetings to further detail schedules for their particular buildings, answer any specific questions that people have. Because we know there'll be a lot of questions once this is out there. So the building principals will be setting that up, and we hope to make a little more intimate gathering where people can have more of a dialogue and conversation about the schedules. Again, our plans will be submitted to the state by July 31st, posted on the website. And this is, again, a very fluid document. It's subject to change based on executive orders, et cetera. So if we need to change anything because of that, we will let you know immediately. So I just want to end by, in summary, suggesting that we've learned a lot through the pandemic. We've learned a lot about our ability to handle things. We learned a lot, how we use our space, how we teach our students. We know if we have to go to a remote environment, we'll be a lot better this time than we were in the spring when we had to change on a dime. We've also seen a lot of innovation occurring. I've gotten emails from companies that I've never heard of before. We're making plexiglass this and plexiglass that, and are ready to help schools out everyone they can to increase the health and safety and make some money. And we know that school is going to be different in the fall. We know that the experience is going to be a little bit different for our kids. It's going to be a bit different for our staff members as well. I know that when I went into the classroom to look at the plastic dividers, it was rather sad, quite frankly, and rather stark that you walked into a room that has a bunch of plastic dividers around desks for kids. We know that our young kids can't wait to see their teachers, and teachers can't wait to see them. They want to give them a big hug, and when they get told they can't and keep their distance, it's going to be a little different experience. So we have to perhaps change our expectations a little bit for our kids. We'll be holding council meetings to answer further questions, but I also want to really take a moment to thank the administrative team, leadership team, Mike Lee and his crew for putting a lot of these things together and really working with us to try to reach our goal. And our goal is really to get kids back in school. And so hopefully, if things go well and trend the right way, the high school will be back full time as well in October. So again, that remains our goal, but we want to do it in a smart way. We want to do it with the safety of our kids and the safety of our staff in mind. And we also know that there'll be people who will be anxious to come back to school and may prefer a remote learning environment, and we want to allow for that as well. So at this point, Arlene, I'll answer any questions the board members have, and then I know later on we'll have a public a public session for people to ask questions. I see some already in the chat room, but we can get to those after the board has an opportunity to talk.
Okay, Roy, thank you very much. I was struck about really how you have balanced a quality education with health and safety for the students and the teachers. I mean, what a wonderful job you have done doing that. And also I was struck just by the flexibility, because given each, family situation, they have different options, which given the challenges of this time is pretty amazing. Yeah. So why don't we go ahead and open up to the board members. I was going to go alphabetical, but just raise your hands and let us know if you want to talk. I think you all are on mute, so we will go alphabetical. John, you're first. Last name first.
Yeah, thank you. And I would just echo, Roy, your comments to the whole team. Thanks very much for the effort that's put in so far. The ground is shifting beneath all of our feet, and it's changing rapidly. So I appreciate all of the real-time effort that everyone's putting in, given that the guidance came out, I think, last week, and you're expected to submit your plans by Friday. So I would also just appreciate hearing that it's a dynamic plan. So to the extent that folks have input between now and the time school starts that is helpful, constructive, and actionable, it'd be great to incorporate that into the plan through the PTA council sessions that you get feedback from the elementary, middle, and high school parents. Just a question on the alternating structures, or parents who choose to have their children stay at home. Will the synchronous learning be literally the same class that is taking place at the same time in the school for whatever the relevant student would be?
Yeah, that's our plan, John. The student will be given a schedule just like normal, and they'll be expected to follow that schedule whether they're home or in person. So yes, the answer to your question.
Okay, that's helpful. And then I think that's my primary question for now. Thank you.
Sure.
Tom Evans?
I think you're muted, Tom.
Sorry, was on mute. I don't have any additional question, but I would, also say I think it's been, a compliment putting together a plan without any real specific direction from the state, which was always the gating item, what we were going to be allowed to do. But I think the plan is kind of the best that we could do with what we've got at the time.
Thanks, Tom.
Michael?
Yeah, just a couple more detailed questions. So I heard what you said about for the high school on lunch. What are they doing for lunch for the middle and elementary school? How will they?
Yeah, so at the elementary school, there probably many classes are eating lunch in their classrooms. to start with, and we are looking at some of the other spaces though as well, whether it be the multipurpose room, the playrooms, for example. If we can have them or a few classes eat there, we can do that as well. We have a proposal for a tent, as I mentioned earlier, that if we get the approvals that we need in time, it'll be set up by the auditorium front lawn side. And we're hoping we can use that to spread out our kids for lunchtime, whether that's, depending on how the schedules go. And that's one of the fine details that the principals will be going over in their council meetings. But if there's no overlap, we can use it for elementary and then middle school as well. But the middle school will be using our new cafeteria space, because if you're spaced 6 feet apart, it can hold 140-ish students, I believe, something like that. And if necessary, we're going to employ the blue gym for another cafeteria space for the middle school. Now, and also don't forget, we do have an open campus currently that we're working through, and we've had some good debate about whether we should continue that during this time or not. The other thing that I'm trying to work through is with our chamber to see if we can get our merchants in town to get orders from the kids and deliver them to the school in different location points, because we want to support our merchants as well. So we're looking at those large spaces, Mike, to try to spread everybody out as much as possible.
I think that's a good idea on the delivery. If you're able to keep the merchants busy, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And then what about for extra help? I think it's either before school or after school. Is that a possibility, or is that going to be eliminated, at least for the time being here?
And you want to talk? I see you unmuted yourself, so you want to answer that one, I think.
In the high school, we're planning to do it remotely, mainly because just in general, we're trying to make sure that any interaction between teachers and students is tracked, I want to say. So any in-person interaction. So extra help is a time when people might be dropping in and out of places. We might need to decrease that kind of thing, at least initially. So we plan to do it remotely. In the high school and the middle school, I believe it runs from about 7:45 to 8:30. So if you were attending physically school in the morning that particular day, you might have to finish extra help a little early, for instance, but we do plan to do it remotely like we were doing in the spring.
Right. Well, like a few of the other board members said, I mean, quite remarkable that you came up with this plan with very little guidance from the state and the schools. So hats off to the administration and get this done in such a quick time period.
Thanks, Mike.
Jen.
Thanks. A couple of questions. What happens if we do get some positive tests or cases? Will we have to shut down completely, or will it be contact traced?
Yeah, so the specifics of that, and there's a number of questions in the chat room that are similar in nature. What happens when there's a positive case? We're getting specific instructions from the Department of Health. I was on a meeting on yesterday, with the members of the county Department of Health, and they're going to be administering specific guidelines for us to use, and also giving us a point of contact. So if someone were to test positive for COVID, we're asked to do some contact tracing as well, which is one of the benefits of trying to A, limit the number of kids in the building, B, limit the movement of kids, particularly at elementary school, because you can get a better handle on the contact tracing part of that. But we'll be working directly with the Department of Health, who will be the ones, quite frankly, that either shut us down completely or tell us to shut down a classroom or whatever it might be. That'll be a decision made out of our hands at that point.
Okay. And do you anticipate any problems with staff not feeling comfortable returning, either due to health issues of themselves or with people they live with?
Yeah, we're working through that, and Rachel's handling that as part of her HR responsibilities. So Rachel, you want to address that?
Yes, so faculty have been notified, any employee have been notified that if they have any concerns and think that due to pre-existing medical conditions, they may qualify for accommodations, they are to reach out to me. We have an accommodation request form for them to fill out, as well as their physician, with backup documentation. Once I receive that, then I will have a meeting with them, and we will determine what, if any, accommodations are appropriate.
Okay, and logistically, are we going to be able to provide any food service through our cafeteria?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we've been in touch with Chartwell's and with our our cafeteria manager, and they are prepared to do box lunches, the grab and goes for our kids. So that'll be set up, and they're ready to handle anything that we need, quite frankly. So I did see a question in the chat room, where, will they be able to prepare box lunches for the elementary kids? And the answer is yes, or all our kids who want that kind of lunch, yes.
Okay, and last question is, will we be providing the masks and other equipment that the students need?
So we're going to be asking parents to have face coverings for their kids, several of them to use. The state is asking us to have a number of disposable masks on hand. And based on the state numbers, just so you have an idea, based on what they're recommending for us and our size school and staff and everything, we'll need about 90,000 for the year. So it's like 1 per child per week, 5 per staff member per week, and there's a formula figured out. But we're in good shape on that. I just I had a contact that I gave to Mike Lee today for 50,000 masks at a cost of 30 cents a mask, at the 3-ply disposable masks that are decent. So I think we'll be okay on that end. We're also asked to have a set of face shields and things. We, don't forget, we're helping out some students who may have difficulty with a face covering, and staff member for that matter, and may prefer the use of a face shield instead. It's not quite the same level of protection, but it's a level of protection. I just saw new ones come out the other day that have a bottom piece that go under the chin as well, which may help. So we'll have a set of those on hand for that purpose. So if student forgets theirs or breaks or they lose it or whatever, we have them covered.
Great, thank you.
So Roy, going back to your comments when you first started, I kind of left with the impression that each family has a decision to make as we go through the month of August, right? About my comfort level and whether or not I'm ready to send my children to school, or if I want to keep them home. First of all, did I hear you right on that issue, that we each have each family has that decision to make?
Yeah, so we'll be sending out a parent survey that will ask that question. My child is in next grade, I plan on sending them back, or I don't. The only problems it's going to present for us is, I think we'll be asking parent to commit to at least a quarter, if possible, to that decision, because otherwise we may have somebody in and then out and then in and then out, other than normal sicknesses that might last a day or two. But to try to schedule and then have it changed quickly all the time would be logistically very difficult for us.
So we're basically saying, make a decision for the first quarter and then you can readdress it at that point.
That's our preference, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then my last question goes to, you need to file this plan by the end of this week, and it goes up, and as I recall, Como said they were making final decisions on August 1st through 7th. So do you expect to hear from the state next week if they've approved your plan, the plan?
So what they've told us is submit your plan. Actually, the plan is not technically being uploaded to the state. It's just a link to the plan on our website.
Oh, okay.
I do have to complete a number of assurances that I'm certifying that we have in place as part of this. That goes to the state. But we were told that if you don't hear anything from the state, consider your plan approved.
Okay. So you think the risk of any interference from the state is fairly low?
I do. If we get any interference, it'll be from the Department of Health, not from the State Ed Department, is my opinion.
Okay. Do any of the principals want to add commentary or color before we move on? You don't have to. It was just an invitation.
I mean, Arlene, I have a question. Maybe it's connected about facilities, but maybe you were planning on moving on to that next.
Go ahead.
Well, so right now, a significant chunk of the building is under construction. So will we be ready to open up September 8th with, buildings open and places to learn?
The plan now is yes. It's going to be pretty close, but all interior spaces are expected to be open and available. They'll still be working on the guidance edition and the lobby edition, but all interior classroom spaces are expected to be available.
And the elementary curtain wall is moving along well?
It's moving along well, but we have 5 weeks left, and we need to do a lot in 5 weeks.
And Dan, no concern about the health offices or cafeteria?
I'm concerned about everything every day, but they're tracking to be available September 1.
So Dan, when will your comfort level get so that you can sleep better at night?
I will not sleep this summer.
No, you're just no sleep.
October 1st.
Okay.
I think
October 1st.
maybe in May.
Okay. Any other comments from the principals oh, Jack?
Yeah, John asked one of the 2 questions that I had, because obviously all of these plans are contingent on having space available. The other question that I had is, Roy, you've talked about the high school perhaps going to full session, no AB, maybe in October. What would trigger that?
So Jack, what we're thinking is, we start with half the students in and half the students out. Like as I explained, we want to see how we manage the hallways, the social distancing, the cleaning of classrooms, all those things, lunchtime with the middle school, et cetera. Assuming we get a good handle on that and the infection rate isn't going up and we don't have any cases, those kind of things, those are the variables that I would look to say, okay, let's have 2/3 of our kids in and run it through a 2-week period as well to see how we're managing a larger group of kids. And assuming we got that down and we're managing that well, then we can invite all our kids in.
And there would be enough spacing, 6 feet, even with everybody in?
We do think so. That's part of what we're still going through, and we're looking at repurposing some of the rooms. Because one of the areas, for example, is the new learning commons that we didn't have online before. There was a couple of classrooms, but now it's a large space with different rooms, so we can set up differently there. We have an innovation center now. I'm hoping that even the guidance suite or the atrium, I know they tell us it won't be done by then, but if there's a chance that will be done, that's another space that we can spread kids out in. So we think that'll be better. We also know that older kids can tolerate a mask better than younger kids. So while the state recommends 6 feet distance, you can have them less than 6 feet distance for what they're calling core activities, of which learning and instruction is one of. So if the kids have a mask on, I'm fairly confident that if we get the desk, 5 feet apart, we will be okay as well.
And what about, is the busing to the private and parochial schools going to be part of that plan? I mean, we're lucky in some ways that we don't have busing inside the district, because all of my colleagues who have lots of busing don't know what to do, because obviously you can't put usual number on a school bus, but we do have kids going to private and parochial schools. You don't need to go into it, but will that be part of your plan to get submitted to the state?
Transportation is a section of the plan that does get submitted to the state. And so we have that outlined, and I know Dan's going to work with our private companies to make sure they adhere to the requirements that we have.
Okay.
Okay, Roy, if
Yes.
appropriate, can we just take the 3 minutes and do the personal action item that we have that Rachel can carry on so we can follow the agenda? And during that time period, if everyone can take a moment and look at the chat feature on Zoom that is showing us the questions that are coming from the public, and then we can ask the public to hold on for 3 minutes and we'll get back to all of your questions.
Sure, that sounds good.
Okay, Rachel, floor is yours.
Very good. I have a few action items for the board to consider this evening as it relates to personnel. They involve resignations of a teacher and teacher aides, as well as a full year leave and a substitute appointment for that leave. So I'm asking you to consider items A through E, and this does complete all of our hiring for the fall.
Can I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
And Jennifer, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that took less than 3 minutes, Roy. Okay, so let's
sure.
go ahead and move into public session. And thank you for the public that's with us today and the questions that are appearing in our chat room. Roy, they're kind of coming in groups, if you will. So should we just tackle them and start at the top?
Yeah, why not? That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. So you know what I'll do is, if you don't mind, I'll probably just easier if I just read the question that's in there, and we'll go from there, right? So does the final decision on in-person versus hybrid versus remote rest with the district or the state? Yeah, it's an interesting question, because right now it rests with us, with our plan that we're recommending. However, the state can come in at any time and say, you have to go to full remote. So I'd like to say it's our decision currently, as long as we meet the requirements that they've asked us to meet regarding social distance and cleaning and questionnaires and all those things that we have to do, then it's our decision. And we feel that at this point, as I mentioned before, Kate, we can have in-person in high school and a hybrid, but that's not to say that the state can come in at any moment and say, well, the infection rates are going up, or this happened, or whatever, and you're shut down, so go to full remote.
Yeah, Roy, if I recall the press conference with Como, he basically said that 5% over a 7-day average period was a kind of a safety valve, that if the region starts to creep up over that 5%, he's shutting it down.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's 9%. There was always that in between 5 and 9% thing that's a little vague, but I think, but you're right. You know, he's hedging his bet on the 7-day average.
Right.
That who knows. Next question is wondering if you could talk more about the conditions under which you would make the decision to go remote versus in person. How exactly does that decision get made? So it's similar in response. The conditions are really how well we're able to manage the social distancing in our school and lunchtime and all of that. And I think before, if the state doesn't shut us down for remote, then it would be a decision that would be discussed with the board based on a number of variables, on infection rates. Do we have any positive cases? Are we able to staff what we need to staff? Or, you know, there are a lot of variables come from whether we have positive cases of COVID or not, whether we'd have to shut down and how much we'd have to shut down and go to remote. Okay. At work, to host a meeting, we've given managers a headset microphone that has helped amplify their voice with clarity. Have we considered this? So we're looking at a number of different ways to try to amplify the sound in the rooms. I know Brad has looked into something called an owl cam, which makes any room a smart room, has a 360 camera that follows voice, and apparently the sound is quite good on it. So we're waiting for those to come in to experiment with. We looked at the possibility of any amplification systems, whether a microphone gets passed around or something like that. So we're experimenting with things, but we don't have any great answer that I'm aware of just yet. And please, if I'm answering questions, if any of the administrators want to jump in and correct me or add to, please don't hesitate. Will the playground be open? The answer is yes, the playground will be open. We'll be using that, and again, socially distanced ways. The most recent things that I've been reading is that playgrounds don't need to be cleaned in between classes because the virus will not hold onto those surfaces. But we are prepared through those electrostatic sprayers. We have a mobile one that we can take outside. to spray down the playground as well. Do we shut down if one person in the building gets COVID? Again, that will come directly from the Department of Health. My feeling is they will not shut the entire school down if we have one positive case. I don't think they would, but it also depends on the contact tracing that's followed up with it. So I think we'll take our direction to the Department of Health. Will children be given movement breaks or other alternatives, assuming recess will not be taking place? Yes, the answer is yes. We know that we have to build in breaks that, you know, kids, especially young kids who want to move around, are not going to take too well to being in a class for the entire time. So we're going to encourage on nice days for teachers to walk them outside, take advantage. Recess will be interesting because it may be individual recess, but hopefully we'll get to walk around, even if it's just walking around the track once. That's 6 feet distances, that's okay. But we're going to try to build in breaks for all of us to take our mask off when necessary. Rachel, I'll let you handle this one. Speech therapy, OT, PT, and lunch bunch.
Yes, so it's our expectation that we will be continuing to offer those services. As you may be aware, many of those instructional spaces are small, so we will be requiring face coverings, and we are purchasing dividers, but is our intention to offer those services. If it is a group and they are all happen to be in the same homeroom, classroom in the elementary school, we may do push-in.
Thank you. Okay, have you thought about grouping middle school students maybe first based on math levels so they remain in one classroom for the blocks before lunch, later based on the language that they take? So we lessen the hallway jamming. Tom, is that something you're considering or trying to work in? I know it's challenging.
To say the least. There are many different things that attach a student to their schedule, and the students don't move in large enough groups to make those kinds of decisions. Nor does it make sense in middle school or high school to have the students stay in one room and rotate teachers. Their educational programs are varied enough, and there are enough variables that doesn't work as well. However, we are looking at trying to stagger some of the hallway work, and we will continue to look at that.
Thank you. Can the cafeteria provide boxed lunches? Yes, the answer is yes to that. We'll be doing that. Since new cases are inevitable, what will be the criteria on which classes will close or if school will be temporarily shifted to remote learning? Are there specific thresholds and protocols in place? Again, not to be a dead horse, but that one will be answered by the Department of Health. There are specific protocols. We're required to report it. If we have a positive case, they take it over from there and work with us on the contact tracing and will advise us whether we have to shut down or not. With all the doors open and open campus, how are you addressing the need for increased security measures? Well, we do have outside guards who go outside the building and walk around our campus continuously. I don't know that we'll have our doors open to the outside. We were talking about classroom doors open to the hallway. I don't believe we'll be having our outside doors open, however. How are visitors handled, parents, caregivers, outside educators, anyone else? So one of the things we put in our plan to start our year off, we are not going to permit outside visitors inside the building unless it's a parent picking up a child or parent picking up a sick child or something like that. We call them essential people to come in. And if so, they will have to also be given the questionnaire and scanned for temperature. But we're going to cut down on our visitors in the beginning of the year. Any type of thermal imaging or daily health questionnaire, the answer is yes. And we also, as I mentioned before, we have the kiosk set up to take group temperatures as kids and staff members enter the building. For the elementary school, have you considered going paperless inclusive of books and textbooks by using tablets? Tricia, comment on that at all?
Sure. Yes, we are going to be using more tablets or Chromebooks, and really try to, increase the use, but also balance. It's also important that kids still have real books in their hands. We're coming up with a system that once kids do use a book from the classroom library, that we put it in a bin and kind of quarantine those books for a couple days before they're returned to the regular library.
Thank you. For the elementary school, have you considered assigning teachers who may not want to return to school to be remote teachers instead of having all teachers be both remote and live? We've looked into that, and there's a certain set of protocols that accommodations that teachers have to go through in order to stay home, but it also runs into potential certification issues or grade level issues. If it broke out into nice little neat packages, that would be great. But the challenge is if you have a teacher at home teaching remotely and kids in the building, you still have to have another teacher in the classroom facilitating it. So it makes it a little bit tougher. Will separating students into different rooms be monitored by one teacher? No, we're planning on using our teacher residents as well to help us in those secondary rooms to help facilitate the students. We do have plans of trying to have the teacher introduce the lesson to all the kids and then separate them out from there with a teacher resident facilitating some of the activities. Let's see. What about busing of the special ed kids into school? Dan or Rachel, can one of you address that?
Yeah, any student who qualifies for transportation, the bus company will have to adhere to the guidelines as outlined.
Okay, thank you. Within the high school, I assume there's a reason group 1, group 2 are not decided by grades. Freshmen, sophomores, and junior and seniors. Just wonder what you're thinking. And is there?
Sure. A lot of our classes are mixed grade level, some 9th through 12th. Many 10th and 11th grade are mixed. So there's just no way to make that work effectively given our schedule. So that's why it'll be alphabetical.
Thank you. Has the district hired more cleaning staff? Is the cleaning protocol posted online? Will students be cleaning their own desks? So we do have, we contract with a private company for cleaning. And if we need more people to come in, we will contract with them to have more people come in to clean. We do think the new sprayers will allow us to be a little more efficient in that regard. But if necessary, we'll hire additional people if we need to. Will students be cleaning their own desks? Well, we don't really want them to be cleaning their own desks. We are if we can find enough wipes, the Clorox wipes, we'd ask that similar to if you were at the gym when you had to wipe off a piece of equipment, you just wipe down your desk. We're not sure we can get enough wipes to do that. But again, as I mentioned before, the BioShield product that we're purchasing will provide a nice protective layer on the surfaces where the virus will not adhere to the surface. We're also considering the use of large construction paper desk mats to use. So when a kid leaves a classroom, they pick it up and they throw it in the garbage to add another layer of protection. Is there a plan to add teaching staff this year? Not currently. I mean, I'm certainly, if we feel the need to do that for whatever reason, whether it means we're splitting up more kids and we need more teachers, we'll go back to the board and ask them to support that recommendation. But right now, we think we can handle it with the staff that we have. Will you be polling the parents to ask whether they think the plan is okay or goes too far, one or the other? If there are positive cases, how are you going to handle siblings being close at home? So, this is a tough one because it's not a vote. We can't operate that way. We're required to submit a plan to the state, and we're recommending what we feel is going to be the right thing for our kids. But we're also providing that opportunity for parents to, if they don't agree with an in-person instruction, for example, they can learn remotely in a synchronous environment, and that option will be there. So we're trying to add some flexibility into the plan, but also making the recommendations based on what we know and what we feel we can handle confidently. If there are siblings at home, then it would most likely, and somebody was a positive case, I would probably think that that sibling would be asked to quarantine for a period of 2 weeks and have to learn remotely for that period of time. Regarding high school, why can't they start back full-time like K-8? What was the thinking behind that? Again, it's really mostly related to density, student density. We didn't feel confident that we could separate the students in middle school and high school at the same time with that many children. Lunch does present a problem for us. Even though we know that kids can leave for lunch, there are many days when it's pouring rain out that they don't want to leave for lunch. So right now, we're just not confident we can have that many kids in our building at the same time. We know that high school kids handle remote instruction better than the younger kids. So we think that was another part of what we were thinking. But again, if all goes well, we hope to have our high school kids in as quickly as we possibly can. Estimated costs and all additional measures being proposed. I don't even want to guess at this point, but I will certainly, we can come back to you on that. Dan is, I'm sure, adding things up. It's costly, I will tell you that, but right now we're managing it fine. But I wouldn't even have an estimate at this point.
We have a maintenance budget, Roy, and suffice it to say that this is going to be the primary focus of the annual maintenance budget.
Yeah.
And there's nothing we won't sacrifice as far as student safety goes. That's our number one priority.
Yeah. Yeah. I forget where I am now. Okay. Middle school desks going to be cleaned after each period. I think I addressed that earlier. What about technology equipment for students, especially appropriate options for K2? Tricia, we have that handled, right? As Chromebooks, is that what you're going to distribute to the kids? I'm not quite sure what you were doing there.
Sorry. For K-2, we do have some Chromebooks. However, we have iPads on order. Hopefully they'll be here the start of school, although Brad did tell me they're back ordered, but we will have iPads for K-2 and then Chromebooks as we have before, we have for 3rd through 5th.
Thank you, Tricia. I forgot about the iPads on order. Could you speak about how you might handle differentiating between everyday illness or flu versus COVID, given long turnaround times on testing? Well, that's a challenge, right? We know, and I was just having the conversations today with someone, you fill out a questionnaire and you might have a sore throat, that might be an everyday illness. That's why you're getting a questionnaire on a daily basis. So if you have any kind of symptoms, then we're going to ask you to stay home. If you think there's a possibility of COVID, then we're asking you to get tested and contact your primary care physician. But the next day, perhaps that symptom goes away because it was just a common cold or something like that, or the next 2 days. As long as you don't have those symptoms, then you fill out the questionnaire and you're not presenting a fever, then you'll be okay to come back in. That's one of the reasons behind that daily questionnaire. Let's see, with flu, cold symptoms that can be confused with COVID-19, how can each family make a safe decision to send the kids back to the community if COVID-19 test was not conducted? That's a challenge. I don't have a great answer for that. That's why we provide the option for anyone who's not comfortable sending their child in. We have that option to stay home. There's been a lot of talk in the circles I'm in about whether schools should be testing kids or provide for COVID-19 on a weekly basis. And we know that some of them are not accurate. We know that the test is good for one day and then maybe not good the next day. So it would be a challenge for us, but this is why it's so hard to make a plan for everybody. And there are a lot of individual decisions that people are going to have to make that we can't make for them. We can provide what we think is the safest learning environment that's flexible and fluid, put all the precautions that we possibly can in place based on recommendations, but it will still come down to a family making a decision whether they're comfortable sending a child back or not.
The Department of Health guideline is very clear that if your child or an employee presents with any one of those symptoms, they cannot enter the building that day. So it could very well be a symptom of allergies. And yet if they present with any one of those symptoms, they cannot come to school.
Correct. Will you loan out Chromebooks if needed again? Of course, absolutely we will. And we'll send out a questionnaire if anybody needs that kind of equipment. We'll be happy to do that. Will there be specific protocol for bathroom use? We're working on that. We know that we don't want more than 1 or 2 children in the bathroom at once. So we're going to be working on doing that. We'll be blocking off certain sinks and maybe a middle sink. So there can't be 2 kids together washing their hands that closely. So we're doing those kind of things as well. How do you plan on enforcing distancing, mask wearing, adherence to rules with hundreds of children in confined space? Yeah, I know walk down Bronxville Road during the day highlights the challenge. We know that, but you know, that's, you know, again, that's going to be a non-negotiable for us that we have to just emphasize. And just like any other disciplinary issue, if a child starts refusing to wear a mask or doesn't adhere to our rules, you know, they'll be dealt with as any other disciplinary measure. And if it's on a continuous basis, there's a good chance that child will be asked to learn remotely for a little while until they can understand the rules of the game here. You know, we have to come down hard on mask wearing. I'm sorry, it's just the way it's going to be. We know that's going to be challenging for kids and adults, but I do believe that that's one area that we can't, we have to come down hard on. Social emotional tone in high school cannot be underestimated. I absolutely agree with you. We know that for all our kids, it's been a tough road having schools closed and everything else that they've been taken away during this pandemic. And I think our psychology staff and counseling staff are geared up and ready to help with that just as soon as kids come back. Have you evaluated having all remote learning consolidated with a teacher in each grade level? We talked about that a little bit earlier. It's a challenge to do that. It doesn't always work out that way. One teacher, maybe, you know, if it's a grade level at the elementary school, it could work out potentially, but we don't know how many kids yet. If it turns out that we have 25 or 20 students in grade 2 that want to stay home remotely, we can certainly set up remote classrooms like that. That's a little bit easier. But if it's one here or one there, it makes it a little more challenging. So once we get that survey out and people tell us what their preference is, we'll have a better idea. Are you considering a wearable contact tracing solution to minimize the likelihood of shutdown in the event of positive? I'm not sure what a wearable contact tracing solution is. Can anybody help me with that? Because I'm not sure what it is. Okay, sorry.
Sounds like you haven't considered it, Roy, so.
I have not considered that.
Roy,
yes.
in other countries that are more connected, if you will, there are Bluetooth tools that can connect and can show if you test positive, you'll have a little light that will go on like a Apple Watch. I don't know if that's the technology they're talking about. It's being used in some places in South Korea right now. So I don't know if that's the technology we're talking about, but there is some solutions out there, but I think it's beyond what we can do.
Thanks, Brad. I figured you would know that one.
What we can do if when we have a positive case is we can look at the cameras to help the Department of Health in the contact tracing in terms of, you know, in the hallways and in the bigger spaces if there was contact for more than 15 minutes.
Rachel, there's a question about speech therapy. You know, how can it work if kids are going to be wearing masks?
Yes, so we are purchasing some masks that have the clear portion to allow for the mouths to be seen so that both the speech language therapists and the children can wear them while receiving services.
Somebody's asking about ordering clear face masks for all the kids, which might help children hard of hearing. You know, we're going to order some of those and try to experiment with that a little bit. And we determine that's a better way for us to go and can still provide the protection that we want, that's something we can consider. But it's my understanding the face masks themselves don't, they prevent the large droplets, but they do not prevent the microscopic droplets, which is why the face covering is the recommended mode of protection. So I'd be concerned about that.
We have experimented a little in our special education summer program, and not all of the clear coverings work well. Saliva can build up, it can get foggy. So we're working with different brands to see what we can pull off.
Thanks. How will you identify students that did not complete the daily attestation before they arrive? If somebody doesn't complete it, there's an automatic report being generated, and it'll first send a reminder to the person who didn't complete it. If they still don't complete it, it'll give us a report of that. So we'll have a list of the no's or the yeses and the people who did not complete it at all. If they didn't complete it, then we will do it. We will do the check at school. We will have the nurse do a symptom check and a temperature check. Choice between mask and a face shield. Right now, I'm going to say no. I'd rather, based on everything I know that I've read, the mask is the way to go. If somebody wants to use a face shield and a mask, they can. But for now, we're going to stick to a mask. Students going to be able to use lockers. We're not going to assign lockers. Certainly to start the school, we don't think that's a wise choice. Tom's going to be redoing that when he does the council meeting, talk about some of those things. And by the way, a lot of these questions, I know that people have a ton of questions. We still have some time, but I want you to know that I would encourage you to attend the PTA council meetings at the individual schools, where a lot of these specific questions, we can go over again, and the principals will be in a great position to help you out as well. Will there be enough bandwidth in place to handle the streaming from my class? Great question. For the families who opt to stay home. So we are expanding our bandwidth to a 10 gigabyte pipe. Is that right, Brad? I got that right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, and we think that's going to help us out quite a bit. We're also trying to be smart about how we have kids or how we have teachers stream. So we think we'll be able to handle that. Does the plan work with 100% opt-in, or does the plan assume some percentage of students remain remote? It'll work with 100%. We're assuming 100%. We can't have an in-person plan unless we know that we can handle all the kids. So as I said, other than high school, obviously, but for the other ones, yes. Are we considering repeating the pass-fail system? The answer is no. We're going back to the normal assessments. Will there be specials offered, music, art, PE? I believe we do have those planned out, and they will be offered. The biospray you spoke about seems new. Is it government approved or FDA approved? The answer is yes. And we can certainly provide the information about the brand and the chemical composition. I don't have any issue with that at all. You can look it up. It's called BioShield. And will you organize separate entry exit times for better social distance and not have crowd controls? Yeah, we're looking at staggering the times if we can, but we also have 3 different entrances in the building marked out, and we're going to make that very, very clear. But we are going to also kind of refine our schedules to see if we can have staggered start and end times if possible as well.
Roy.
So I think that's it. I'm tired.
Take a drink of water. So Roy, you still plan on having a letter that will go to the community this week, correct?
Yes.
That includes all this detail?
Yeah, it may not include all the level of detail. What I'll probably do is outline most of the things that we covered tonight, but I'll send it out to the entire community because obviously not everybody was here tonight. And I'll have to also emphasize the fact that there'll be other meetings scheduled through the PTA council meetings.
Right. So the message to the public, and first of all, thank you ever so much for attending. I think the Zoom allows so many more to participate, which is great. Please stay tuned because as additional information becomes available, it will be shared. I hope you have a sense of the hard work that went into this to provide a flexible plan so that you and your family can make a decision based upon what's important to you, your values, and your needs. this plan is great in being able to tailor to what those needs are. I think Roy's right. We've got a plan for a cycle that we're going to reopen, and we may have to close and reopen and close. And we just are very fortunate that we live in a district where the administration has such a comprehensive plan that allows for those activities. Please continue to share your questions with us. And really, I want to thank you very much for your patience and support. This has been a difficult time for your students and your children and the administrators and the teachers and everybody. But I think we can work so well together to support our school and also to support our community. So with that, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you again, everybody. Have a good rest of the week.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks.